Maybe those voices inside your head telling you to think those thoughts, do those things, maybe they're real. Or maybe it's just the OG Bunga boys back together again at the end of the year. Hi, I'm Alex Hochuli in São Paulo, Brazil, joined by George Hoare in London and Philip Cunliffe in Kent. Hello, boys.
Ramsgate.
Yeah, well, babe,
it's still Kent.
You sound like you're correcting me.
It's the global politics podcast at the end of the year and at the end of England, because you're on the coast.
We're at the beginning of the end of the year.
Yeah, it's where England began, so it's also appropriate to that extent.
So we are continuing a bit of a festive tradition with the boy of Bunga past, the boy of Bunga present, and the boy of Bunga yet to come, convening to discuss a film. We did it in 2020.
Who is the boy?
Who's about to come?
Who is the boy? Yes.
We're all excited to be
George's
back
mom.
together. Yes, to discuss a film. Well, discuss the politics and around a film. Use a film as a jumping off point, a point of departure, if you will. So 2023, we discussed Napoleon, and 2024, we discussed Conclave. But this year, I'll pass to Alex for a bit of the context of this year's filmic offerings.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about American Paranoia on screen. And we've actually very recently released an episode about American Paranoia. In fact, George was over in California to take part in a conference, part of the kind of a soft launch, I believe, of the Palm Springs Institute for Social Research.
Palm Springs School for Social Research.
Excuse me, yes.
You're excused.
Looking back at Richard Hofstadter's famous text with the paranoid style in American politics or American society. I can't remember the title exactly. And we presented you on this podcast, at least, with George and with Catherine Liu's talk from that event. So actually, this kind of pairs up nicely with that. So it's worth maybe checking that out if you haven't listened to it. But as for film, well, if 2007 gave us two films that are inevitably twinned together, which is Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood and the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men, both of which dealt with sort of relentless, unapologetic, kind of senseless violence, moral decay, nihilism, then 2025, I think, has gone one better. It's presented us with three films, which I think it's almost impossible not to pair together. I don't know if you can pair three things. Can you pair three things? Does it become something else?
Yeah, we're a pair of Bunga boys, but there's three of us. No, I think it's you could have said like a triptych or you could have. Thank you for just saying a normal word.
Point taken. So, speaking of Paul Thomas Anderson, who I believe is the most essentially Hollywoodian director still working today, he gave us this year One Battle After Another, released in September, which came just a few weeks after the highest profile assassination in the US in decades, that of Charlie Kirk. Before that, in July, Ari Aster...
Why Hollywoodian?
Well, I basically think that Hollywood films, especially from the 1970s onwards, kind of the new Hollywood, what they fundamentally do is make you feel cool. Like, that's what they do. And Paul Thomas Anderson is the master of that kind of thing.
The master.
But we can come back to this. Let me set...
Isn't Quentin Tarantino Hollywoodier?
Yes, I think so too. But he's doing it as pastiche.
Is he the Hollywoodiest?
Paul Thomas Anderson. Well, but he's doing it as pastiche.
But why does he make you feel cool? Like, There Will Be Blood does not make you feel cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. In terms of, like, there's the more obvious kind of film where you, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of Licorice Pizza, for example, where it's like much more in a cool, vibey California. But I think even There Will Be Blood, there's a kind of, I don't know how to explain it exactly. They're not uncomfortable films in the way that the director we're going to be principally focusing on today, Ari Aster, goes to great lengths to make you feel. I think there's a little bit of a difference there, or maybe a question of era. So anyway, Paul Thomas Anderson gave us One Battle After Another. In July, Ari Aster gave us his fourth film, a neo-Western called Eddington. And then most recently in October, the Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos brought us Bugonia. And I think it's impossible not to join these three up because they all deal with paranoia and with chaotic, unmoored moments and types of political activity. Bugonia explicitly concerns working class conspiracy theorizing and elite disinformation and gaslighting. One Battle After Another is, as many people already know, I assume, is loosely based on Thomas Pynchon's Vineland and concerns the experience of washed up 1960s radicals in 1980s America. It's worth pointing this out just because, as Ryan Zickraff and many others, I think, have noted, there's a certain parallel to be drawn here between the decades as well. The 2010s are to the 1970s as the 2010s are to the 1960s, which is to say that in both those eras, a period of surprising, newfound radicalism and a rebirth of politics perhaps devolves into derangement and then kind of increasingly atomized paranoia and violence. Of course, as we often make the point on this podcast, all these historical analogies are mostly bunk because we live in truly unique times. But nevertheless, I think we can all agree that there's a certain similar kind of comparison to be drawn between the late 1960s and the kind of radicalism and wokeness as well as of the 2010s and what happens after. Ari Aster's Eddington, which is the film we're going to be primarily discussing, and I say that because I think George and Phil haven't seen Bugonia yet, but both have seen One Battle After Another. Phil's shaking his head, so we've got 3, 2, and 1. So there's going to be no spoilers on the latter two, but we'll touch on those.
Yeah, I
as
couldn't
and when.
bear when I read about One Battle After Another. I just couldn't bear the thought of watching it.
Classic
George said
Phil,
it's actually
classic
very
Phil.
good. George said it's actually very good, but I still can't bear it.
I think I appreciate Phil sticking to his guns, like not watching a fairly good film to own the libs. Really, it's very on brand.
It's not to own the libs. It's simply that I don't want to spend time watching something I know I won't enjoy.
No, I think there was
you don't
a Guardian.
You don't want things to make you uncomfortable. You want to feel, safe and protected. And that's your right,
space.
Phil. That is your
right. It's not
right.
about protecting space. It's about protecting time, my friend.
True.
I have a limited amount of time.
Very fair. Very fair.
But I think there was a Guardian review saying it's the most important film of the year, and that quite rightly makes you not want to see something. So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, a film described as important is always kind of going to be a bit obnoxious, unless it's like a friend telling you that. And even then, who calls up their mate and is like, "But you have to watch this film; it's very important."
So is this a segue onto us talking about Eddington, which I suggested was very important, and we should definitely discuss.
Just on that point, I think it's in a way. I mean, it's quite obviously the most immediate of the three films. It deals quite explicitly, obviously, with conspiracy, paranoia, and radicalism in the very recent context of COVID, and maybe we can also touch on the notion of immediacy, I guess, of the film in some way. Which maybe to make a call back to the episode we did on that, we actually dedicated in some ways two episodes, one more critical than the initial one, to the book Immediacy, which has kind of made quite a lot of waves, at least in kind of the theory circles. So I think this might be an interesting moment to also bring back those ideas. But anyway, George.
Yeah, so I think just to delve right into it, and we'd previously given thumbs up or thumbs down, or one popcorn or two popcorns to the other films, Napoleon and Conclave. I mean, did you guys actually enjoy watching this film? Is it a good film? And I will ask you to describe it as well in 3 words, because I heard a story about Boris Yeltsin was asked by John Major, the then British Prime Minister, to describe the Russian economy in 1 word, and he said good. I'm not going to do the Russian accent, and he said good. And Major said, could you expand on that? Could you use 2 words? And he said not good. So, which, and I'm still not entirely. I just think that's a good story. I don't know if it. Yeah, I kind of crowbarred that in, but whatever. Yeah, good film. And what are your 3 words about this film? Alex,
I think it's a good film. I don't know if it's an enjoyable film insofar as it's extremely chaotic. I mean, it's less panic-inducing than Ari Aster's previous film, Beau is Afraid, which I watched only recently, really, and which contains some scenes of serious paranoia, psychosis, kind of identity loss, and make you really feel uncomfortable. This isn't so far, but I did think at the end of it, I was thinking this is a good film, and it immediately thought back to One Battle After Another, which I had watched at the same cinema, and I came out feeling like that was fun, but kind of I'm going to forget this film, and indeed I haven't. I don't remember it very much. Yeah, I did think I thought it was a good film, and I guess the words are I feel angry. I feel angry are my 3 words for the film.
Wow. Okay, that's not bad, Phil.
I thought it was a good film. I enjoyed it, even, it's not a great film, but I enjoyed it a lot, mainly because I think it does capture a particular moment. What are my words? 3 words. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Oh, no, actually, crazy.
Wait, I just want to wait. I need to say, because the software, I automatically cut out long silences on the podcast. You don't want to hear those, but there was a long pause before Phil said "crazy, crazy, crazy." So.
Yeah, I think if you're cutting out,
let me say crazy, crazy Brexit. There you go.
Okay. I think it's a problem cutting out the long pauses, because sometimes pauses can be used for
dramatic effect, but also indicating that serious
nicely done, boys.
Yeah,
effect.
Also, that serious thought is taking place on the podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, or to give that appearance, even if it's not. So, I did not think it was actually that good of a film. I've mentioned on this podcast before, Ben Wheatley, the British director, who says don't read anything, kind of basically make a decision that you're going to go and see a film, go and see the film without having read anything about it. But so I was dimly aware that this was supposed to be a big deal film. It was gonna, it was really insightful but still ambiguous politically, and it had all this meaning and all this. It was a real kind of step forward from some of Ari Aster's other films. But actually, I was just left feeling like a bit. I think my expectations were too high, and so I was like, so my 3 words would be actually kind of disappointing. So I'm a bit more of a negative Nelly, and this is even going into One Battle After Another, and as one of these people who's all of their friends really think that Paul Thomas Anderson is the best director in the world, and being like, oh no, he's overrated. Phantom Thread, God, if I have to see another kind of Paul Thomas Anderson cap or like T-shirt with a knowing reference, I'm gonna lose my shit. And actually enjoying One Battle After Another, and thinking there are some real particular high points, 2 car chases in, especially. This film really did not do it for me. It did not. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe this conversation can illuminate to me, my dull brain, what's really going on here in it, and explain why it's more interesting or intelligent than I just felt it was a bit of a mess, and the ending was a bit cruel, unnecessarily, and I just didn't vibe with it. And this was even after rewatching Midsummer for now the 3rd time, a film that I really didn't like the first time I saw it, and the more that I watch it, the more I think, yeah, this is a good film, because it's cruel about PhD students, it's accurate about how terrible they are, and it's also a good moral lesson about what happens if you try to take an extreme kind of culturally or morally relativist position, and you're like, oh yeah, these spoiler here, oh yeah, there's these people jumping off a cliff and smashing their heads up, oh that's fine, it's just what they do here. And the strongest thing that these PhD students, these anthropologists, can say is like, oh, from a Western perspective, it's quite immoral, or they really struggle to say like, well, yeah, maybe they shouldn't do this.
So I mean, I obviously agree with the critique of anthropology students and their exoticizing of distant others and all that kind of thing. But it did sound like you were saying that you liked the film because it had a good moral message, which is not a sentiment that I would endorse with regard to cinema.
No, I mean, but it's a revenge fantasy. If somebody wants to break up with you, you should paralyze them and burn them alive, which is, that is a good practical lesson. Maybe it's not moral, but maybe it's the way to get things done. No, but anyway, so to move this on to any other Ari Aster films which are worth kind of discussing as a bit of context, did you kind of, maybe I went to this with my expectations were a bit too high because I thought, oh, he makes some sort of interesting horror films in a very broad sense. I think there's some interesting things, Hereditary in particular, some references to Goya for the art historically minded amongst you as
Really pretentious, really
well.
pretentious.
This I will have to link to the essay by Tara Heffernan and Felix.
It is a very good
who's-
essay, actually. It's worth
Yeah,
reading.
yeah, which I did share, but yeah, I'll link to. Anyway, sorry. Other Ari Aster films. What were you bringing to this?
So I liked So it's very different, like you say, I haven't seen the other ones, but I did see Midsummer and Hereditary. I like them both. I didn't think there was much going on beyond the atmospherics and creepiness in Hereditary. Perhaps I'm missing something out. With Midsummer, I did enjoy the side swipe at PhD students, but even more the side swipe at decadent Swedish hippies. Just how creepy and weird Swedish hippies are, Scandinavian social
I think it was. I think it
they're
was
democratic
not-
a
bacon.
stand-in for all Swedish people. Let's
Yes,
be real. Let's
be
really.
real. Yes.
I know we have a lot of Swedish listeners,
Yes.
and apologies for
Let's
speaking
do our
Yes.
best to alienate them.
truth to power here, but we know
Yeah.
that that's what all Swedes are like. If anyone's ever met a Swedish person,
Yeah. So I I enjoyed them, but there wasn't much beyond the way in which the story was constructed skillfully, atmospherically, such as it is. Whereas this, I think there is there's not it's not a particularly sophisticated message, but there is a big take home point. So which I guess we'll come to in due course. But that's
I'm interested to hear you say that. I really want to move it along, but Alex, I don't want to shortchange you to talk about some more Ari Aster films.
No, I'm not sure I have much to add because I can't.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't remember
That's
much
fine.
of Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid. I think I've made my comments on. I think it's a fascinating film, which required an editor to be like, dude, 2 hours, not 3. 2 hours, not 3.
Yeah, what's happened to all the editors in Hollywood? I mean, come on, 90 minutes is the right length of time for a film. I've said this before, and I will say it again. Pacing is important. I mean, it depends on the genre to a certain extent.
You can have a 4-hour film with good pacing, but
I rewatched
you
Titanic.
can, but not everyone
well
is not everyone is fucking Tarkovsky, man. Like I agree with George. Like 1.5 hours. Don't get too big for your boots. Do everyone a favor, like these kind of 2-hour movies dragging on and on. It just makes you want to talk.
2 hours. 2 hours is fine.
Phil already said at the start. He's time poor. He's got shit to do, man.
Absolutely.
An hour and a half, bam, polite hour and a half, and then on to the next thing in your life. So I guess then this is the big question, really. Is there a political message? If so, what is it from this film? Because I think this is what's got a lot of the discourse, a lot of the discussion on this. But yeah, what is the political message of this film?
The political message of this film is, wait for it, I know you guys have been dying to hear this for a while now.
I mean, I think listeners are now they have their Phil bingo card, or they're like
it is Brexit. That is the message of this film.
I didn't even think you were going to be that bad. Jesus Christ.
No, it really is, man. It really is, and I'll tell you why. Because I think I've rarely seen such an effective portrayal of the craziness of that period of world history, condensed into a small American town, but also it was all, Trump is kind of hovering. He appears once on someone's telephone screen, but he's kind of the presence, I think, in a way that's hovering over the whole film. And so that peak of American unipolar dominance and empire, just as it's being wrapped up in the midst of COVID and BLM, it's insane. I thought the chaos and confusion of the movie just reinforced to me the imperative of seceding from the American empire. Like you've got to get out of this insanity. Absolutely. You just have to get out of it. It is so crazy and so well portrayed from the screaming speeches given by white people about how they have no right to speak, but they're going to scream at you anyway, even though they're talking on stolen land. And then he gets the actors to kind of spasmodically twitch away with their masks when the COVID masks slip too far down off your nose. It's just an incredibly, it's not authentic in the sense that the story is especially plausible, but in terms of capturing the atmosphere of paranoia and strangeness of that time, it really brought it back to me. It really
But
brought back
why do you say that time? Because for me, it's okay. Obviously, COVID.
COVID and BLM. I mean, specifically masked up mandates and insane protests on the streets.
But I
That
think a lot of
that
Americans
period.
would attest to the fact that the U.S. is just as crazy now. That it's not like that's a period which was left behind. Okay, that was a relative peak in recent history, but things have gotten even crazier. I mean, again, the Charlie
There
Kirk
wasn't lockdown.
assassination.
Don't doubt things are tense and so on. But it's not. You didn't have lockdown and you didn't have widespread rioting.
But you didn't
And
have
those two things
lockdown
are different.
like in the New Mexico that is portrayed. I don't know if in reality, but many states didn't have lockdown, and the
No,
New Mexico
but
that's
they were
portrayed didn't have lockdown either.
No, sure, but they were conflicted about it. I mean, that's part of the story of the film, right? Is jurisdictions conflicting over whether or not it's the right thing to do for the country. My point is, it is a very effective. It is very effectively caught that atmosphere of craziness. Even though I wasn't obviously living in New Mexico or the states at the time, but so much of it came flooding back.
Well, we kind of were living in the States in the sense
Well,
of the States
that's why we need to
was
Brexit.
everywhere at that
Yeah, we need to Brexit
point.
from the American Empire. So
So
yes, the political message is leave Americana, leave the empire. It's
right.
gone completely insane, and you need to preserve your own sanity as an individual and your own national independence as a country.
So
I mean,
but Alex, before I pass to you, just Phil, what you were saying there reminded me of this Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor quote. Some people can read.
I thought you were going to say Lexit
No,
Luthor.
Lexit Luthor.
Lexit Luthor.
maybe that's what made me think of it. But some people can read War and Peace and come away thinking it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe. But amending that a little bit.
Thank you, George. That's really quite flattering.
But I'm just imagining you reading the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and being like, yeah, this is about Brexit. Everything. It's an impressive ability to link everything. Right? A monomania.
It might be concerned the regulations about what you're importing in terms of the products that you use to make chewing gum. So
exactly.
It might be about Brexit after all.
So it's about Brexit, says Phil. Perhaps somewhat unsurprisingly, Alex, what is the political message?
I mean, obviously, Phil didn't even go on to say it's about Brexit. Right?
Phil hasn't seen the film.
No, you know that I have, because there are moments I've referred to already.
I know, but it's a joke, right?
Anyway, I'm obviously sympathetic to the idea of obviously kind of breaking away from the American empire before it's too late. But it's already in us. I'm afraid.
Home. Yankee go home. That's the message of the film.
Lock the Yankees down.
Again, I'm sympathetic to this, and maybe they should put tariff walls on Hollywood productions. If Trump wants to do the opposite as well, by the way, he wants to support Hollywood by stop importing cinema, as if Americans are watching foreign cinema. But anyway, people can retribute likewise, and maybe that would be useful to bolster national cinemas, particularly, I don't know, in places where it's decayed. Speaking here from Brazil, very much the case, despite recent rebound. But anyway, I think Phil's, in that regard, yeah, there's a particular American style of derangement which is being exported. And it's partly because we all live online as well. I mean, it's the same internet, and mainly the same US-dominated internet. Of course, we would be, I'm sure China would welcome us if we wanted to adopt its internet or be using its apps, but I'm not sure that would be much better. I think the point about it, I don't think it has a message. I think it's a portrayal of the type of derangement that we're facing today, right? I mean, I don't think its characters are particularly real. I don't think Aster has particular affection for his characters. They're a little bit too much of archetypes, which they fit into. But of course, you have the kind of the MAGA sheriff and the kind of lib mayor.
But he's not a MAGA sheriff,
huh? But hang on. I'm getting there. But to give him credit, I think what he usefully depicts is the fact that this man who is going through, he's politically angry in a justified sense at the kind of at the mask mandate and the kind of ridiculousness and absurdity of all the kind of COVIDianism, but also going through a huge amount of personal turmoil that just sets him off. And the only language through which he can express his disgruntlement, his anger, is through this kind of MAGA package of kind of chaotic conspiracy theories, and that's what he adopts. Right, his car becomes covered in the kind of standard
It's not
placards.
MAGA though. I mean, I think this is a choice, right? It's a choice. It's clear Ari Aster made a choice not to make it about Trump.
No, but
Right?
that's why I said Trump and not that's why I said MAGA, not Trump. Right?
I'm not sure it's MAGA. I just don't think
it comes into the wider umbrella, right? I don't mean to say he's a Republican or anything like that.
No, I understand that. I know, like, you're not suggesting, you're not kind of saying, you're not making an anti-Trumpian point, and I'm not defending Trump. I think there was clearly an important choice made not to make it easy, right? To characterize one side as Democratic and one side as Republican, particularly by the time you get to the end, when the characters swap over roles in terms of their stances on some of the major issues. So I read that slightly differently. So, like
what do you have in mind in terms of swapping sides?
One of the BLM protesters, spoiler alert, becomes a conservative blogger,
influencer,
podcaster, influencer, and the conspiracy-minded mother-in-law becomes a champion of the deep learning, deep state data center.
Right. I think this is to the point, right? Which is, these are all the characters in a way exemplify contemporary trajectories. So I don't feel they're especially well-rounded human beings, and not all films necessarily need to have that, because that isn't what Aster is trying to do here. These trajectories that people pass through, in a way, are very emblematic of what goes on today, right? So precisely that the guy suddenly, the kid decides to become the Brian character, who's the friend of the mayor's son, decides to become kind of a BLM wokester to get the girl. And then he doesn't get the girl, or whitever. And then
he gets the girl as an influencer,
and then he happens upon, he saves the sheriff's life while filming him while shooting the bad guy, and going, "Sheriff, I saved you," on camera, right? So it's all completely self-involved and made for social media. That obviously, we're led to believe in the coda, gets picked up by conservative media, conservative influencers, political figures, etc. And then he gets hoovered into this, and he's like, "Cool, this is what I am now. I'm a whatever."
So, go on, Phil.
Well, it was only to say, the movie went in a completely different direction from what I was expecting. I was very sympathetic to Joaquin Phoenix's character at the start, the sheriff, who is kind of skeptical, obviously skeptical of lockdown. He's asthmatic, so he understands it's problematic. He doesn't like the kind of arbitrary cruelty and brutality with which citizens in his small town are treating each other. And he doesn't. And I thought also the slogan that when he's kind of groping his way to political expression, the slogan he comes up with when he records his first political message: "We need to free each other's hearts." It was so kind of wonderfully touching and naive and authentic. It's exactly the kind of thing that you could imagine a small town apolitical person coming up with in the effort to kind of heal divides and restore community. That's important to him. And then it goes, but he doesn't allow you to have that, because he stays up, you're in lockdown, he's staying up all night watching crazy videos, and everyone goes crazy. He goes crazy, his mother-in-law is crazy, his wife is crazy, the mayor is crazy, like the kids are crazy. They all want to get in each other's pants while they'll also kind of
that's not crazy. Angela that's Davis. The most sensible thing. That's
those crazy kids.
It's not okay. I mean, poorly phrased. That's not crazy, but the way they do it is crazy, right? They have to burn down the town in order to get in each other's pants.
So I want to kind of come back to this in terms of the characters and their development. But Alex, I did, because I do agree with you, but this is why I didn't like it. Maybe I was too sympathetic with the Joaquin Phoenix character, and I knew that we wouldn't be allowed to have good things. He would have to be brought low. But Alex, what? So if Phil says this film's about Brexit, and the political message is Brexit is good, shock horror. What's your kind of what's this film about politically, and what's the message? How would you sum that up?
Look, it's about the end of history. If we're just going to play the hits, then I guess I mean that in a serious sense, in the way that it's the complete breakdown of the world that we knew from the 90s and 2000s, but also the breakdown of the 20th century. Again, we're repeating the hits here. But the world of where everybody is kind of paranoid, quite easily manipulated, but also suggestive that everyone else is being manipulated. The way that, for example, the blonde girl who becomes like a hardcore BLMer addresses her potential boyfriend who is a black cop, saying you should be on our side, and kind of intimates that he's being somehow brainwashed or something by standing with the cops. Again, is another instance of that. And there's I think this kind of sense of derangement, but also where there are dark and very powerful forces happening in the background. Of course, the big story here is the data center, which gets set up, which there is a political conflict
Deep
to be
learning
had.
is deep state.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but
that's the message in the film: deep learning, deep state. It's a great line.
Although there's also the conspiracy angle to it, which is like to read books and know stuff, is to be in with the deep state. You need to stay free from ideas, or
you should listen to podcasts.
Yeah, well, but there's a sense of this
Long
paranoia,
pause, deep
right?
thinking.
So no. So
that is deep thinking.
That was thinking, yeah. So again, that pause might be cut out, so people won't get the effect. But
we're the only ones who get the real, authentic, unfiltered, kind of.
But
experience.
Anyways, so there's dark, powerful forces at work, right? The data center, which should be a central point of political contestation in the local politics of this town, never is able to really break out because all this derangement happens. So there's no real contestation over a fundamental economic matter, over who controls the land, over who has access to the resources of the water, of a data center which might provide jobs, but maybe not, and will have other effects in society, which should be the central element of politics. It never happens, and instead the data center at the end opens right after all this carnage has happened, and it's almost like no one's really questioning
it. Fronted by the people who previously opposed it.
Who previously opposed it, exactly. Yeah. And in fact, the mayor's assistant in the film, I think played by Benicio del Toro, right? I think, except he doesn't. Is this right? I thought it looked like him, but he was wearing a mask in part of it, so it feels like almost like a cameo. Anyway, small role.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, well, you can look it up while I'm finishing off what I'm saying, but he ends up switching sides, and so he is with the kind of Democratic coded mayor, and then at the end of the film is with the kind of wacko MAGA coded mother-in-law and the now paraplegic former sheriff. So there's this for me it's just a depiction of hypermedia, of hyperpolitics, and the way that protest and politics on both sides, such as it is, has this unreality to it, right? It's immediately driven to social media, but it's also deadly serious at the same time. And that's, I think, in a sense, the story of our time, right? That particularly in the United States, the rise in political violence at a time when nothing seems serious, nothing seems real, and everything is at the same time deadly real. Particularly amongst political operatives, the political class, and I guess a lot of professionals, or maybe the upper third of society or whatever, who engage in politics. And actually, to steal a point from which Benjamin Studebaker made on this podcast recently, which is like there's always a bit of a gaminess to politics amongst the people doing politics, kind of make these big accusations but don't really believe it. Meanwhile, there are kind of deadly serious things going on: unemployment, loss of income, poor health, the role of AI in data centers, which aren't being properly questioned, et cetera, et cetera. All the stuff that should be submitted to politics aren't happening. Instead, everyone's shouting at each other, fascist, communist. Hello, friends. You've reached the end of a sample from an episode only available to subscribers. We put out 2 episodes a month for free. For access to the rest in its entirety, please join us at patreon.com/bungacast. For $7 a month, subscribers receive original, exclusive episodes with the entirety of the BungaCast cast. That's George Hoare, myself, Alex Hochuli, and our contributing editors, Philip Cunliffe, Amber Lee Frost, Catherine Liu, Lee Jones, Alex Gurevich, and Lee Phillips. We've got extended interviews with guests, episodes on current affairs, and original episodes on theory, history, and culture, so as to understand the crises of our times. We also have the BungaCast Reading Club, where Phil, George, and myself present the key books and essays necessary for understanding the world today, how we got here, and where we might be going. Subscribers also get a digital subscription to Damage magazine, with whom we're partnered, and you can find all this info at patreon.com/bungacast. We do hope you'll join us. These are turbulent times, and ideologically confused ones as well. What we try to do is find political clarity, to move beyond the decadent age of Bunga Bunga.